All right, welcome back to SouFLoTV again, everybody. It is your host with the most. Listener, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and let's get right into this. We've been following the whole Clansman One Don gang trial and thing, and like we've been telling people, court process in the court of law is very different from online court, from social media court. All right. Now, shout out to the Gleaner for this one. The ex-cop and the prosecutors are scolded. They're scolded by the judge for evidence foul-ups. Okay. If you look at one of the 40-something follow-ups that I have done to this thing, you will see that on one of them I said, this case could very well be thrown out because blah, blah, blah. Now, while lambasting prosecutors for their persistent failure to provide supporting evidence in the Clansman One Don gang trial, Chief Justice Brian Sykes also accused the police of taking too many shortcuts in the high-profile case. I see everybody out there, not everybody, but there are a lot of people who claim to want better for Jamaica like it's a state of emergency. Yes, get all of them off of the road, lock them up, make the place better. But in order to do that, you would have to have a court system and a police force that works properly. This is where the judge comes in, and the judge is saying, y'all expecting me to find people guilty and sentence them based on what? What you're putting before me is messed up, right? The tough-talking judge, while expressing frustrations. Now, mind you, a lot of people are saying, yo, I think that judge, they get pay off, you know. Yeah, man, if you watch that Judge Sykes, him in a them pocket already, no mind him fling with the whole case. The judge is doing his job, and he's doing his job according to the books. And when that book is opened, he has to be able to show that he followed X, Y, Z. He can't go in there and cut corners and make up his own rules. And when he does that, this is the result that happens. The tough-talking judge, while expressing frustration with the prosecution style of presenting evidence, stressed that too much reliance was being placed on credibility rather than on affirmative and independent evidence. All right, so some feel so if this was the judge that was overseeing Vibes Cartel case, that cartel wouldn't be in prison right now. Jano, because the judge would have said, so hold on, officer, you took the evidence, right? You took the cell phone out of the evidence room, brought it home with you, did what you wanted to do with it, and brought it back the next day and placed it back in evidence, and now you want me to use that tampered evidence as a credible piece of evidence in this case? Can't happen. Judge Sykes would have said that. I absolutely firmly believe so. I don't know which judge oversaw this cartel case, but that judge was probably paid or coerced to do so. Yes, and I say that boldly. So now they're saying that Judge Sykes is a tough-talking judge, and he is frustrated, and he is expressing his frustration of the prosecution's style of presenting evidence. He stressed too that too much reliance was being placed on credibility rather than on affirmative and independent evidence. All they're going off of basically is word of mouth and everything that one person says. One person know everything about 33 people, and this one person is supposed to put away everybody. Me would like a bit more evidence than this. Some affirmative and independent evidence. This is the type of stuff that I bring to my audience. I'm going to get cussed out for it enough time by people who are not even regular viewers of SouFLoTV. But anyhow, we must move away from talking about it's a matter of credibility. Everything is about credibility, he said. We must move away from this kind of nonsense. This is the 21st century, and it's not a lack of technology. It's not a lack of resources. It's not a lack of opportunity. The technology is available. Why not use it? The judge asked. All right. So when I say more, like I told you before, it looked like more of the 33 of the alleged Clansman One Don gang accused will be walking. Listen to the process unfold. We must move away from talking about it's a matter of credibility. Everything is about credibility. We must move away from this kind of nonsense. This is the 21st century. This is not a lack of technology. It's not a lack of resources. It's not a lack of opportunity. The technology is available. Why not use it? The judge said. Justice Sykes unloaded his frustration after a prosecutor responding to a no-case submission for defendant Jason City Puss Brown noted that the police witness who had pointed him out in court had misidentified his voice on one of the 3 recordings. Backside and back foot and back. You see what I say? You see what I'm saying? So here they have recordings, right? And here goes officer who is no longer an officer who coming to testify, and the one that said, yes, I went there and I make sure that, talk to him first and everything before I let him know, say, yes, who I am, and that he's in trouble. I can identify him voice and everything. Then play somebody else. Him say, yes, that's him, and it wasn't. Misidentified his voice on one of the recordings. The judge queried or asked questions why the voice notes had not been submitted for this trial but for another case. Sykes was not pleased with that response. We are to just once again accept his words, is what the judge said. Speaking of the one person who they are hoping his testimony is strong enough to send everybody to jail. Okay, so once again, you had chance to put forth credible evidence and you did not. So again, let me guess. We're supposed to go off just his words. The retired inspector of police who was called to identify the defendant has testified that he had listened to threatening voice notes demanding extortion fees, which were allegedly sent by Brown or City Puss to business owners in Spanish Town. Let me just make it clear. City Puss is going to walk from this one as well. The then inspector had later gone to Horizon Remand Center, where he tricked Brown, according to him, into speaking with him to ascertain whether the voice that he heard on those recordings that were floating out in the street telling people, say, you better run the extortion money, was indeed this person for real. And remember, he testified that, what's her name? The one lone female in all of this. He said, I didn't even know where he was at because he was incarcerated at the time. And it was Muma who actually told me where he was at and gave me his full real name. And I went to the facility to go talk to him because I wanted to talk to him, to look at him, to get the voice, to make sure say him on the recording. The then inspector had later gone to Horizon Remand Center, where he said he tricked City Puss or Brown into speaking with him to ascertain whether the voice on the recording was indeed his. The retired inspector said that the conversation he had with Brown confirmed to him that the voices were indeed the same. The ex-cop also testified that he had also spent about an hour outside of Brown's cell at the courthouse listening to another of his outbursts, which was similar to the voice that was heard on the recording. But the judge, Sykes, during his next 6-minute long rebuke, said that it was unacceptable for the court to be asked to rely only on the ex-cop say so, when he had spent hours listening to the defendant's voice and had visited him in prison specifically to hear his voice for confirmation. The judge questioned why the police had not employed the use of modern means of investigation during the visit. Why did you not record his voice and then compare it to the recording that you had from before? He also asked why the jail visit conversation had not been recorded. Too much shortcut, man. Too much shortcut. Coming in from the police, he said. You claim you have voice notes. You are making the claim that it is the voice notes that enable you to recognize the voice, and the voice notes are not produced. How that makes sense? Now I'm asking my audience. You say you have voice notes. You said that it's these voice notes that you were able to use to recognize this person. Because after you heard those voice notes, you went and visited him just to make sure it's the right voice note you're hearing. But here you are now in court standing before a judge, and those voice notes are nowhere to be found. They're not produced. So, I guess we are just supposed to accept it on the face again. This is not sufficient in modern world, the judge said. Furthermore, he said that the Crown is seeking to discharge its burden of proof, must put its best evidence before the court. The judge said that it was amazing that a former director of prosecutions had lamented the absence of the use of technology to support evidence gathering when he was demitting office more than 2 decades ago. But the concern remains an issue even now. Here is the police officer who says he's going to Horizon. And the purpose of going to Horizon is to put a face to the voice. This is not an accidental meeting, and we must just trust his memory and his recollection. He says he sits outside of the cell for nearly an hour, and this man is talking about voice identification and no recording. In this day and age, really? The judge remarked. Again, me say, City Puss I got bust that one ya. The prosecutor asked the judge to accept the retired inspector's evidence as credible despite the absence of the independent evidence. In other words, accept his word. Justice Sykes was also urged to find that although the ex-cop had misidentified the voice attributed to Brown on one of the recordings, he was consistent in the other 2 instances. Of course, because him get the first one wrong, so him know say, okay, if I know that, it must be this or that. Justice Sykes was also asked to consider the circumstances in Brown's case, such as claims that he had been making calls from within prison and that he had multiple numbers, as was testified by the prosecution's main witness. But the judge again took issue with the prosecution's request, noting that there was insufficient evidence. Why is the court being asked to infer this and that? He asked. The prosecution completed its response to the no-case submission for 24 of the remaining 28 defendants. Let me repeat again. The prosecution completed its response to the no-case submission for 24 of the remaining 28 defendants. Justice Sykes is expected to rule on those matters today. Initially, 33 defendants were charged on a 25-count indictment under the Criminal Justice Suppression of Criminal Organizations Act and Firearm Act. 5 have been released from custody so far after their cases were thrown out. Now, they have just completed the response to the no-case submission for 24 more of the remaining 28. And the judge, after saying all that you just heard, is about to make his decision today on should he throw out those 24 of the 28 or should he continue and use this as evidence. Clearly, the judge just let us know, say, this is not good enough evidence. So expect about the next 24 to walk, and there will be 4 left out of the original 33 that started. That's just my prediction. But who am I? I'm just a little vlogger upon YouTube, right? Alright, keep your ears cocked this way, hit that subscribe button and hit the bell next to it so when we update you next, you will get notified. It's SouFLoTV. I'm out. Peace.